Alright, what we want to do is we want to make that skin solution a little bit better. Okay? So, what I would like to do is, I would like to kind of go through and I got to pay attention to how some of these points are moving and how they're working with the bones specifically. Alright? One thing that I like to do, alright, is if I go into play mode, and instead of just running the play animation, actually just scrub the time slider, you can see specifically what's going on with some of those points. Alright, like you can kind of see like where points are going and what bones they might be connected to and how things are moving. So just by scrubbing that animation, you can see that stuff. So what I can do is I can pick my character geometry here, and I can go in to edit the envelopes while I'm in play mode. Alright, and you can kind of pay attention to, and you have to be really careful, but you can pay attention to like what's actually happening with your bones, right? And you can kind of almost see how the thigh bone right here on this left leg, alright, is affecting points around it, right? So as we scrub this, remember what red means. Red means as the bone moves, those points have to go with it. Alright, so all the way down here at the bottom of the thigh bone, we have a very rigid connection to that set of vertices and to the points that are below it. Alright, so what we want to do is, for each of these bones, right, like you kind of want to have it very rigid in the middle where the bone is, and then start to kind of fade out, like yellow and then blue. And especially at the joints. Alright, like the joints where you have an elbow or you have a knee or you have maybe your character doesn't really have a knee so much, but he has foot, like kind of where the top of the foot meets the leg. You want that to be a really soft connection. Alright, so some of those things are important to pay attention to. So you can look at that, and you can look at what's actually happening, and you can kind of maybe see that a couple of points are being left behind, alright, or you can see that a couple of points are moving with something that they shouldn't be, and you can come back and you can affect it. Alright, so if I hop back out of envelopes mode and go back into I gotta pick my platform, get out of play mode, go back here, and we'll just look at that one more time. So we'll go right back into edit envelope mode. What I gotta do is I have to kind of go through my entire character, and I really have to be careful and pay attention to those weights that are set up. So I want to go through and I want to affect that stuff so that I get a good solution for my character walking. Alright, you can kind of start to fade those out. I really like using just the selection tool. I like using my polygonal or my this is my lasso selection tool so that I can lasso those points that I want. I can get the specific points that I want, and I like using like that absolute effect to be able to turn points on and off. Alright, it really makes things much easier. So that way, when we run that walk cycle, we should end up with better solution there. Alright, and we can start to get that exactly where we want it. Still got some issues down around the foot. I would check the foot out and inspect the foot next. Alright, let me just follow all the way through with this one so you guys can kind of see it. So we'll go back in, we'll go to edit envelopes. Now I'm going to look at the foot itself. The foot is very rigid on the bottom. It has no... really doesn't kind of fade or doesn't fade up into a yellow or a blue at all. Okay, so we can stay rigid on the bottom, but up here kind of towards the ankle, we really want to start to go to a yellow. And then up here around the calf, we want to try to have some pull there, but not a lot. So maybe start to go into a blue. So really what I'm looking for that foot is something kind of like that. Okay, so now I go foot to this next bone, up to this next bone. We'll see how that runs real quick. We'll just hop back over here, take a look at it. It's getting better. It looks like there's a set of bones, and again, we're just going to pause this real quick. It looks like something is pulling on the vertices over here up top. If you scrub it through, see how that set of vertices over here is like getting pushed and pulled by something? It almost feels like it's the hips kind of pulling that. Let's take a look at that really quick. We'll go over here and we'll see if something's superseding some of these other points. Yep, look at that. So the hips themselves are affecting points down here on the feet. So even in that edit envelopes mode where you can fix this, you can be in play mode and you can scrub the time slider. And check this out, watch. We can still pick all those points down here. We can drop those all the way down to 0. Now the hips have no play over top of the feet, and all of a sudden the feet are acting a lot better. Okay, there's still 1 point on the back, a couple points on the back of the feet that are being controlled by the hips. Let's just pick those one more time, drop them down to 0. Okay. This one's not going with me. It's probably because nothing over here is affecting it. Alright, so you can grab some points over there and just kind of include those as part of the solution for the foot. You can see that update live. Okay, I don't do too much envelope editing in play mode just because it's tough to select points. Like, you sometimes have trouble selecting stuff. So like that left leg I edited while I was in setup mode. The left leg's looking pretty good. The right leg needs a little bit of work. I would go back and probably do that in setup mode. Alright? But looking at things like in play mode really does give you a good feel for what's actually happening, right? Because like as you're watching the character animate here, you can see that we're affecting, like with the torso, we're affecting some points out on the arm. So we would just kind of pick those points, cut those down. Alright, and then again, like if there's a couple points that are left out, you can include them with the bone they're supposed to move with. And you can very slowly go through and you can troubleshoot some of those areas that are giving you trouble, alright, or giving you issues. So right out here, see this little point on the finger? Right? Like as we scrub through the time slider, you would see that that one's kind of being left alone or left in the dust, right? So you can come back in and you can pick just that one individual point. You can crank that up so it goes with the finger. And now he's moving even better than he was before. So he's starting to move pretty well. Okay, and that's awesome. Got a little dance going. Okay. Next up, some other things. With the character's walk cycle, the character's moving tremendously around the hips and around the rib cage, and his arms are moving kind of funny, and the legs are moving. Legs aren't actually too bad. The leg on the left is kind of showing you something a little bit more true to how it should be moving. Alright, so what I want to do is on that, I want to go back over to my motion tab here. So I'm going to pick the parent object for the cat object. And check this out. I want all you guys to follow along with me here for a second. So we got in play mode, okay, the ability to edit the movement. So it looks like a little cat paw down here. Okay, you guys see the little cat paw? Look on your screen. Click on the motion tab. Click on like the little wheel. It says motion. Go down and look at that little green icon that looks like a cat paw. Alright, so this is your cat motion editor. Oh, thank you so much. Tilly was like, how come I don't get any books? So, thank you. Thank you. Alright, so check this out. This thing's pretty cool, right? I'm going to run my animation. I'm going to hit that little cat paw. Alright? And let me just put this up on your screens because I want you to be able to see what I'm actually doing in here. I think this makes a lot more sense if you can see it a little bit better. Okay? So I'm just going to cast my screen to you. You should have that up there. Alright? In here with the cat motion editor, so I'm running my animation. It can play while I do this. I'm going to run my cat motion editor. Alright? I have some settings that control how much movement is actually taking place within my character walk cycle. So for the pelvis itself, right, if I click on that little plus symbol, I got some settings that I can control for just the pelvis. Okay, so like twist, roll, pitch, lift, push, weight shift, offset position. Alright, and each one of these parameters kind of controls what's actually happening with the movement for the individual bone itself as it's walking. So let's just think about just the pelvis, right? That's like the main hub for the character. That's just his hips. So if I go down to twist, this motion that's going on has to do with the amount of movement that's going on has to do with this curve that's here. Most simple way that you can affect like movement on the hips or kind of like maybe deaden the amount of movement that's going on, like with that hip sway and the twist and the roll and the push and all that stuff, is to take this value for scale and change the percentage that it's being affected by. So if I just pop in 50 instead of 100 for twist, let's pop in 50 instead of 100 for roll. Let's go down to pitch, lift. Let's kill this by about 50%. Let's go down to push, weight, shift. I got no curve on push, so nothing's happening there. Weight shift, we can do 50 there. All right, what we just did on the hips was we kind of deadened the movement by about 50%. Killed it by about half. All right? And all of a sudden, his hips aren't moving nearly as much. If you wanted to do that even further, right, you could do the same thing once again. You could kill all of that, either roll or twist or hip sway. If you wanted to see more of it, you could up that value. All right, but if I don't want his hips to move nearly as much, I can just kind of deaden that force that's being applied to the hip bone. All right, if you don't like what you did, or maybe you did it too much, you can always go back and you can hit reset. And it's always going to go back to where it was. All right, but what we did was we actually kind of crushed that down 50%. I think the hip sway is like way less, and it's a little bit more realistic for this character, and it's starting to look a little bit better. Plus, you don't have to necessarily like affect some of those vertices so much. Like, you don't have to really worry about something totally tearing apart from another bone because there's not as much movement in there. It's Mr. Kepler. Hi. Yes, I do. Yep. Yes, he's here. Okay. He's here. Thanks. Bye. Okay, so I'm going to go over to rib cage real quick. Let's look at the rib cage. Just watch the character's rib cage moving. We'll go down to twist. Let's kill that by about 50%. We'll go down to roll. We'll kill that by 50%. Let's go down to lift. Let's kill that by 50%. We'll go down to some of the other values. See how there's like nothing on that curve? But look at his chest now. So now the chest compared to the hips aren't moving nearly as much as they were before. Alright, so your character's not moving as aggressively. He's a really small character. He probably wouldn't walk like that. He probably wouldn't walk by like moving his chest so much. I'm going to kill it 50% more because I still think it's a little too much there. Alright, so I just went through 50% more, and look at that. It looks a little bit more natural for this character. Okay, let's go to arms really fast. I'm going to go to the bend. Let's play with that value real quick. Let's just exaggerate it. Let's crank it up. You see how that movement is happening? All right, if we go the other way, which one looks more natural? Right? Okay, so you can play with some of these values, and if you get lost, you just hit reset and go back to what it was originally. But I like to just kind of like play with values that are a little bit more static. I like to put in like a 50%, maybe a 50%. If I want to see what the value, or I want to see what that effect does on the curve, I might crank it up and go to something like unrealistic. All right, cross swing. Let's see what the cross swing does. What does cross swing do? Nothing really. That's not hurting us. We'll just reset that. Let's go to swing. Let's play with swing for a second. Let's see what swing does. Okay, so you get to see how that value affects the character, and then if you want to increase it or you want to decrease it or whatever it might be, you can mess with that a little bit. Alright, so that's going to make your character walk a little bit more realistically. When you're done with the cat motion editor, you just close it up. Alright, last thing, and I'm done. We want to get the head moving with our character, so the one thing that we're not doing is we don't have the head moving here. You could skin the head to the bone. I think it's a little bit of a waste. You guys have a tool up here in the top left that says select and link. Alright, so basically it's the hierarchical relationship between two objects by linking them as a child and a parent. What I want you to do is I want you to, let me just test this first. I always get it backwards. Let's see. I went from the head bone to the character. Let me just make sure I got that right. Okay, that was backwards. Let's break that up. We'll go from the character, it's got to go from the character to the head bone. Alright, that's where it's got to go. So I'm going to go from the character geometry to the head bone, and now our character's head's moving with the head bone. Okay? We're missing the eyes, we're missing the teeth. I got to put those on too. So we'll go back to setup mode. I somehow have the head in the wrong position. We'll just move that back where it was supposed to be. There we go. Put that back where it's supposed to be. Okay, so we went from the geometry to the head bone, right? So we'll take the eyeball. I'm going to pick all the teeth. Don't leave any behind. Got a couple back here. This is faster than skinning, but there's not going to be a whole lot of other movement going on here. Like, we don't have to pull or push or squash anything. So we can just select and link that stuff from where they sit to the head bone. That's going to create that parent-child relationship. So when the head bone moves, the eyeball and the teeth have to go with it, but the teeth or the eyeballs could move still individually. So if we wanted to look at something or we wanted to eat something or whatever, we still could. Okay? Let's just run that animation. So we'll pop back in play mode. All right, let's see if it's working. Character's walking. Okay. A lot of head movement. Real quick. So we'll pop in that cat motion editor. Take a look at head group. Here's my head. I got twist, roll, pitch. We can play around with those values a little bit. Maybe deaden that just a hair. Alright, not too bad. He's starting to look pretty good. I got a couple issues. I got some stuff I would troubleshoot down here by his foot. I would want it to look more like the left side. I got a couple little things in here I'd want to still like kind of tweak around his elbows. I got some stuff over here on the other side I want to tweak with his elbows, maybe mess around with like his arms. I don't like how his arms are bending. I'd probably want to play with like the position of those just a little bit. But not too bad. He's starting to move. Okay? Next thing would be getting him to walk in a line or walk up a hill or kind of follow some kind of ground or something like that, but that's something for down the road. Alright? Give that a shot. Try to fix your skin solution so that it moves more naturally. Try to deaden some of the movement on some of those bone groups like the rib cage and the hips and the head. Alright? And hook up your head to the character's head. Alright? Get that stuff going. What I'm going to do, I'm going to push the deadline back. We'll kind of push it to next week. Next week, we'll do a review. When we're done doing review, we'll do a little review every day. When we're done doing review, I'll let you work on your character. We'll just put the deadline for this at the end of the week. I'll give you way more time. Okay? Get going, guys. All right.